Hey there, welcome to NZ Money Karma, where you can find freedom from the daily grind through budgeting, simple living and adventure. Today we're into part 2 of how to pay off your mortgage early. I'm not going to recap what I talked about last time, but I will link that one in the comments below, so check that out after you've watched this if you like, to hear the first things we did to pay off our mortgage early. So if you are brand new here, welcome. I do a whole lot of different stuff on this channel, frugal living, cash stuffing, and today I'm talking about how we paid off our mortgage. We did that by the age of 40. It was a lot of hard work. There was no magic recipe, and there's no magic or, wishful thinking involved in what I'm going to talk about now. It's all just what we actually did. So hopefully you can find some nuggets in there and something that will work for you too. So the next thing we did after increasing our income and paying more money on the mortgage, decreasing our expenses to free up, make a bigger gap, the next thing we needed to do was get in the zone. And what I mean by that is we were already committed. We were totally committed to paying off the mortgage, so we were in that zone. But it's actually really hard. And someone commented in my on my last video, it's quite a lonely journey when you do this thing to pay off your mortgage early, because you have to change a lot of your lifestyle. Unless you just have pots and pots of money, mostly it comes with a little bit of sacrifice. And for us it did. And to be honest, we didn't actually have people around us who were supportive of the idea of paying off our mortgage early. Our families made fun of us pretty constantly, to the point where my family would still now say to me, oh, have you fed the kids this week, or have you put extra money on the mortgage? That kind of stuff. And they did mean it in jest, and I never took it as anything else. But they certainly weren't encouraging us and kind of cheering us on and saying, oh yeah, that's awesome. You're making really good decisions for your family. You'll never regret owning your house lock, stock and barrel. Nothing like that. So how did I get in the zone? I became a bit of a personal finance geek, and I read anything and everything I could get my hands on related to personal finance, saving money, paying off mortgages. And that was like blogs, books, radio shows. I obsessively listened to Dave Ramsey and the Dave Ramsey Show. We used to daydream about doing a debt-free scream and being the first people from New Zealand to do that. But I never rang up, and I just never booked myself on to do that. After a couple of years having already paid off the mortgage, I did hear a New Zealand family on there. So I thought, oh well, I missed my chance. Never mind. But we did used to practice the debt-free scream at home, and we would stand on our deck. We lived in the country at this stage. We'd stand on our deck and we would all practice screaming, we're debt-free, and just imagining what that would feel like. I know it sounds a bit funny to do, but it really worked for us. It made us feel good. And hearing these regular stories about people who were in terrible debt and making bad money decisions wasn't really like a Schadenfreude thing for me. It wasn't that I was going, oh wow, look at you and look at me. I was just more encouraged by the steps that people would take to say, oh okay, I'm in this really terrible situation. What am I going to do differently to change it? And then I would be able to say to myself, hey, you're in this situation, which wasn't terrible, but I did want to change it. You're in this situation where you owe hundreds of thousands of dollars to the bank for your house. How are you going to change it? And so every day I was looking at ways that I could change just one little thing. And that might have been saving money, it might have been earning money, it might have been changing something in our lifestyle that enabled those things. But I was always looking for a new thing to try. It wasn't like we just went, oh, okay, let's just earn more money. And then we sat back and just did that one thing. So I will link actually a few of my favorite blogs and stuff that I did link into during those years in the comments below, because I did find them really encouraging just to read that other people were also trying to live a certain way to achieve certain dreams. And I think paying off the mortgage was a massive dream, but it's also enabled us to live a whole lot of other dreams, because when you don't have to pay $800 a week on your mortgage, you've got an extra $800 in your pocket to do something fun with. So that's the first thing I'll say for this video, is get in the zone. If you have people around you who are trying to do the same thing, I think that is absolutely the best thing to do. But we did not have those people in general. So we look to kind of virtual forums and virtual communities. And that's worked well. But since we've paid off our mortgage, actually, we know a lot more people who are kind of our same age and have done the same thing. So we're in a community now of people who live quite frugally, and many of them don't have mortgages either. So we have that community now, but we didn't have it when we started this process. So the second thing I'm going to talk about today is something I didn't do, but I would have been willing to do to pay off the mortgage. And we have done this in a way, but instead of paying off the mortgage, we've used it to bump up our retirement savings. Another way to pay off your mortgage early is to be open to change and be willing to move to make it happen. So like I said, we didn't do this to pay off our mortgage, but when we did sell our last house, so we were mortgage free, we sold our last house, we agreed that we wouldn't look for a house that was of the same value. So for us, when we sold our last house, we committed to buying the next house for less money than we'd sold for. So for example, if you sold your house for $800,000, you might say, next house I'm going to buy is only going to be $600,000, and then you're keeping the $200,000. So if you've got a mortgage, this can be a great way to make a really big dent in it. If you own a house and you can sell it for $800,000, and you've got a couple of $100,000 equity in it, so maybe your mortgage is sitting at $600,000, and then you go and buy a house for $600,000, well, you're going to have $200,000 that you can plonk on that mortgage, so your new mortgage is only going to be $400,000. So that's quite a big difference, and it's a big hit all in one go. So what might normally take years and years to create, you can kind of do over a couple of months between buying and selling a house. Now, I think for some people, they find that kind of extreme. For us, when we moved, we actually looked all around New Zealand at where we would live. We weren't at all fixed on our particular community that we were in. We said, okay, we're open to all opportunities. We actually took 4 months off and went on a big van trip around New Zealand, went all through the North Island, couldn't find anywhere where we wanted to live. Then we started on the South Island, found Ōtautahi Christchurch, and thought, yep, this is it. And the next weekend we bought a house. Kind of simple like that. I make it sound simple, but that is how we roll. Literally, I had never even seen this house. But that is another story. I don't know that you should buy houses the way we buy houses, but it always seems to work out all right in the end. And the very last thing I would recommend that we did to pay off our mortgage is restructure the mortgage. But what I want to try and explain to you is, say, for example, you've got a property and it's like you've got a $400,000 mortgage on it. What we did is take $50,000 of that debt and put it in an offset account and say, okay, we're going to pay that $50,000 off in the next year. So we put that in an offset account with the aim that we were going to chuck as much money as we could on it and get rid of it as quickly as possible. For the rest of the debt, the $350,000, then what we did is put another $50,000 on a fixed interest rate for 12 months. So for the first, we're going hard on the $50,000 that's in the offset, and then we know at the end of that 12 months, another $50,000 is going to come off its fixed term. So then we have another $50,000 that we can put in the offset account, or we can put as an offset mortgage and pay that off as quickly as we can. And you could play around with those numbers. If you can't pay off 50 in a year, put in 20 or 25. Whatever you think you can bust out, that's what I would use. So we had 50 in our offset to start with, and then we had 50 in a fixed term for 12 months. Then we'd have like another 100 fixed for 24 months. So that meant for 24 months, 2 years, we didn't have to worry about that 100,000. We just paid whatever the agreed amount was. We weren't paying more, we weren't paying less, we just keep ticking along with that. But what that meant was once we paid off our first 50 in the offset, then we'd our next 50 had come off the fixed term and we'd put that into an offset, so we've paid off 100,000. Say that took 2 years, that meant at the end of those 2 years, another 100 was coming off. So there was always new money coming into the pot to pay off, which gave us a motivation and meant that when we had big chunks, we could chuck it on there. If we had more than 50,000, for example, for the year to put on the mortgage, another lot was just coming off all the time, so we could dump it on there. And then for the very last amount, we'd have 150,000 fixed for 36 months. So every time we paid off a chunk, one of the fixed terms would come up for renewal, and then we could choose what we wanted to do with that. We could either put it into the offset and pay it off as quickly as we could, or we had the option obviously to refix it for a period of time, or take some of it and put it in an offset, some of it fixed. One thing I did realise during this process though is that bank is not our friend. The bank did not want us to pay off our mortgage, and they did not really help us in any way, shape or form to do this. So please don't go to your bank for advice. Run the numbers, use different mortgage calculators and figure out, okay, if I put this on, this on fixed, this on floating, what will I be able to pay off? So in our offset account, obviously we had that on a floating rate. Floating rates are always higher. So we really needed to be sure that we could get rid of that as quickly as we could so that we weren't incurring, a whole lot of extra interest. Whereas the fixed terms, we know what we were paying. When we first took a mortgage, our first rate was 13%. Crazy, right? And I remember when it went down to 8%, we were like, wow, this is so much cheaper. Whereas if you talk to people today, the idea that the mortgage is 8% is really, really scary to them. I will tell you all though that the historic average for mortgage rates in New Zealand is 8%. So if you're working out whether or not you can afford a mortgage, even before you're starting to look at if you can pay it back, please work it out on at least 8%, because that's a safe number. The last thing you want to do is work it out like you only have to pay 3%, because that is an unusually low rate. Just like my 13% was probably quite high for the, but it was just the economic times. So I don't think there's a bad time to buy a house. I think get in and buy it anytime you can. If you're in a house and you're paying it off and you're watching this to try and pay it off, every single dollar you put on it, you're going to get back twice over for sure. Because if you look at your mortgage, you'll see you're paying at least double the amount that you signed up for. So if you've taken a mortgage for $500,000, you're going to be paying $1 million. So the quicker you can get that $500 paid off, the quicker you're going to be able to start saving the other $500 for yourself, not for the bank. Obviously, that's how they make their money. So I hope that makes sense. Please write in the comments below if you have any questions. I know that sounds a little bit tricky when I was talking about the offset fixed and floating rates. But yeah, if you need any clarification, just pop a comment below and I'm happy to answer it. So for us, it took 7 years from the time we decided to try and pay off our mortgage until the time we'd done it completely. So it was gone by the time I was 40. I'm 47 now, so we've had 7 glorious years without that debt hanging over our head. And in that time, we've been able to do some really amazing things that we wouldn't have been able to do if we still had a mortgage. In total, we held a mortgage for 13 years. So 13 years in total. The first 6 of those years, though, we were just plodding along, just paying whatever like the very minimal amount. I think when I first started looking, sometimes it would be things like interest paid, blah, 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 principal paid, 5 cents. Like we just literally paid nothing off the actual mortgage. We just only paid interest almost for that entire time. So getting our head in the game and really trying made a huge difference, but it took 7 years. So that's why I say there's no magic wand. There's no easy way to pay off your mortgage unless someone, dumps $500,000 into your bank account or what have you. But for us, it was just a combination of hard work and sticking to the plan, not getting sidetracked. It's easy to start doing something. Okay, let's pay off the mortgage. But 7 years is a long time to be that focused. And it did feel hard sometimes, and there were times when we were having to say no to things that we would really have loved to do, but we just couldn't afford it because we were paying more on the mortgage. We could have afforded it if we were just making our normal mortgage payments. But ultimately, we think that this has been a really valuable thing for our family to do. It's put us in a really safe financial position. And I think it's really taught our kids a great lesson about, sticking to your goals and really going for them. So that's it for me. That is how we paid off our mortgage in 7 years. If you have any questions, comments, please let me know. Please like and subscribe. That would be really appreciated. And otherwise, I'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.